If you're planning your first Disney vacation and you're excited and searching out guides like this one, you're probably getting a lot of specific info and secret tips. But what gets glossed over is the big picture, the stuff that the Disney pros, and yes, that's a thing, forget that the rest of us just don't know. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about in this video. I am not a Disney pro. I'm here to tell you the basics, like what are your options for transportation, and then send you over to the pros for you to research the details. I will throw in a few specifics that, again, I think they forget normal people don't know. For example, even if you have your own car, you still have to shuttle between the parking lot and the park entrance. By the end of this video, you will know what it is you don't know, and you'll have a plan to fill in the details that matter to you. Hello, I'm Kate. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. I normally talk about productivity and organization, and in my book, organizing a huge trip is just like organizing any other project. Disney is its own specific thing, but it's a specific thing that most of us will eventually do. This video is broken into 3 increasingly large sections. First is who to trust when gathering research and information. Second is organizing your plans, because frankly, organizing is my thing and that's what I want to talk about. And third, I'll go over big picture info about Disney World. The basics that those who talk professionally about Disney World think we already know, but we don't. This is the stuff that it took me watching a million videos and reading blog posts to piece together, and I want to pay it forward. So hopefully someone else who's diving into all of this for the first time doesn't have to do it the way I did it. So let's dive in. The first thing I want to talk about is don't take Disney advice from someone like me. Most, maybe half of Disney content out there is made by someone like me who already creates other content and had either a terrible or wonderful Disney experience and wants to make a one-off video about it. But our content is always going to be out of date. You need to go to the pros. Now, what I hope makes this video the exception is that I'm only going to talk about the big picture stuff that the pros kind of gloss over. Those guys are making multiple Disney videos every week, and in order to do that, the videos have to have specific topics. But the point is, the pros exist, and they're the ones who should be getting your Disney details from. They have literally built businesses around this, and when things change, they make new content. Anyone like me or a friend of yours whose only qualification is organizing their own Disney trip shouldn't be trusted. Stuff just changes way too fast. Okay, on to the next section, organizing your Disney trip. Planning a Disney trip has a lot of moving parts, so you're gonna wanna keep all of your information organized. I did a big Google Doc. If you use the built-in styles for header 1, header 2, etc., it'll automatically build you a table of contents that you can use to link to the right sections, almost making a website out of a document. If you use the headers, the table of contents is automatically created and you can just open it at any time. Or if you want, with Insert, you can actually put a table of contents at the start of the document. On mobile, it takes a couple clicks to get the table of contents open. So I liked having that extra one at the top of the document because it was just easier for me to scroll to the top than to open the built-in table of contents. Notion would work just as well. I'm starting to do more and more in Notion opposed to Google Docs, but use whatever you like. Tools don't matter. Use something that you are comfortable with, but make sure you have some kind of home base to keep all of your research. So let's get into the different sections you need in your Disney planning doc. First is a to-do, and second is a research to-do. To-do is just what it sounds like. It's a place for all the tasks you have to do in order to plan this trip. The research to-do is where you record anything you hear mentioned and you're like, what is that? Do I need to have that? This is also where you'll paste links that you want to read later. Besides just keeping you sane as you dive deeper in and realize just how much there is to know, the research to do section will keep you from going down any rabbit holes as you're researching specific things. And along these same lines, you might also want a third section labeled something like FYI. So after you research something, you can move it out of the research to do and into here to save it. Maybe you don't trust yourself to remember later, or maybe you have a partner planning your trip and you want them to have access to the same information. The next section is for your schedule. Disney will automatically make one of these for you, but I liked having my own where I could also include things that weren't just Disney bookings. This is where you're gonna have your hotel check-in and check-out, any meal reservations, your park reservations. Actually, all of those should be in the schedule that Disney makes for you. But by having your own, you can also include things like the outfits you want to wear. My girls dressed like princesses and we coordinated it so that they were dressed like Belle the day we ate at Belle's Castle. And a lot of people get custom t-shirts made. And I included notes about which counter service restaurant I wanted to eat at different times because those you don't make reservations for, so they wouldn't be in your automatic Disney schedule. Basically, anything you do during your Disney vacation that you are not booking a reservation through Disney, you have to track your schedule yourself. The next sections in this document are going to be all the other things you have to figure out when planning this trip. That's going to be transportation, meals, rides, shows, characters, and packing. At least. There might be some for you that weren't in mine. So now moving on to the next final section of this video, I'm going to give you a little high-level info on each of those topics. Again, just the high-level info that a lot of people assume we already know. And then I will give you links or specific professional Disney creators that you can go to find more details that are up to date. Okay, so zooming out to the biggest picture, big picture. Disney has multiple resorts throughout the world. Disney World, which I'm talking about, is a Manhattan-sized piece of real estate property in Florida, a short drive from the Orlando airport. Universal Studios, where Harry Potter is not Disney. And I would think really carefully about combining the two. Personally, I chose not to. In Disney World, there are multiple big hotels and multiple big independent theme parks. The four main ones are Magic Kingdom, Epcot, Animal Kingdom, and Hollywood Studios. And there's a water park, Typhoon Lagoon, and Disney Springs, which is like a downtown with shops and restaurants that's free for anyone to go to anytime. And there's even a space in Disney World where people own houses called Golden Oak. And the scale of all of these is bigger than you would think. Even each of the hotels is basically a resort in its own right, with their own attractions and different sections that you might even need a shuttle bus to get from one part to another. And the four main parks are bigger than you probably think too. Each park has its own neighborhoods. For example, in Magic Kingdom, there is Main Street, Fantasyland, Liberty Square, Tomorrowland, Frontierland, and Adventureland. I spent 3 full days in Magic Kingdom and only even entered 4 out of those 6 neighborhoods. The roads that are connecting all these different hotels and parks are regular Florida roads, but they are maintained by Disney. The road signs are actually purple when you're inside the boundaries of Disney World, which I think kind of adds to that feeling of being in a magical place, not quite in the real world. And speaking of legal Florida stuff, Disney World spans 2 counties, so sales tax will be a little different depending on which county you're in. And if you are a Florida resident, there are discounts for tickets and season passes just for you. So probably one of the first things you want to decide is staying on-site versus off-site, and getting a rental car versus not getting a rental car. Staying on property has some nice perks. For example, early entry to the parks, being able to bill items you buy in the parks to your room, maybe even having things sent to your room from the parks, just being closer to it all, and being able to use Disney's transportation. But that list of perks is actually crossing into the kind of details that you should not get from somebody like me. The parks are the nicest early in the morning and late at night. So you probably want to be there either early in the morning or come later and stay till closing, or do both if you're like totally superhuman. So think about if you will use that extra hour in the morning when you are deciding between staying on and off site. The second big thing you will probably be thinking about when deciding between on and off site is transportation. But let's finish talking about hotels before I get into transportation. Now, the Disney hotels are all gorgeous and they're all expensive, but they vary a lot in terms of how expensive. For example, we stayed at the Art of Animation, which is a value resort, but still gorgeous and also still kind of expensive. There happened to be a sale at the time that we booked that we were able to get a suite room, basically like a 1-bedroom apartment, for the price of a regular room. We actually put the kids in the bedroom, so when they were asleep, we could close the door and the grown-ups could deal with all of the shrapnel from the day that just ended and prepare to do it all again the next day. So that's my first tip, look for sales. If you are early on in your trip and you haven't booked your hotel yet, which I hope you are if you're watching this video, my favorite one is the Disney Food Blog. They have an email newsletter. They're one of my favorite creators in general for Disney stuff, and they include in their newsletter sales. So that's definitely what I'm gonna do next time I go. We booked our hotel before we knew anything. And as I started to find out more, I realized Art of Animation, where we were staying, is really far from Magic Kingdom, where we were gonna be most of the days. And I was kind of bummed out to find this out, but luckily it turns out I was wrong to be upset. For one, it's all really close. It's the size of Manhattan, but the main roads are like highways. It's really fast to get from one place to another. And 2, the hotels that happen to be near Magic Kingdom are the crazy expensive ones. It would not have been worth it for us to stay in one of those. We had a nicer experience taking a 10-minute Lyft ride every morning and spent less than we would have to sleep in one of those. I will link to a Disney food blog video where they talk about all of the Disney World hotels. But again, I would decide more on price and any sales that are currently happening because they're all just gorgeous. All right, moving on to transportation as promised. Your options are public transportation or Disney transportation, renting a car, or Lyft and Uber. We used it all the time, and I think we never spent more than like $15 for a ride. Yes, Lyft and Uber are available in Disney World, and I think you would have a hard time spending more on Lyft and Uber than you would on a rental car. I think we spent between $10 and $15 for each ride. We used it a lot, and it was really nice. Also, Lyft has the option to book a mini van. They have polka dots, and they always have car seats. They do cost more though. One tip I will give you is that the drivers on minivans are actually Disney employees, and they can enter areas that regular Lyfts and Ubers and taxis cannot. So if you'll forgive me going on a little tangent, Most of the hotels at 6 p.m. have a campfire marshmallow roast. The one at the Wilderness Lodge is a whole sing-along with Chip and Dale. It is amazing, but it is a huge PIA to get out there. Wilderness Resort is just an outdoor themed hotel. Wilderness Lodge is campsites. It is a confusing maze. They have their own shuttle bus system, but if you're like us, you take a minivan and they take you right there. Okay, back to big picture transportation. As I alluded to at the start of this video, the entrance to Magic Kingdom is not a big giant parking lot. It's a lake. You have your own car, you will be parking that car on the other side of that lake. Also, your Lyft and Uber drivers will be dropping you off on the other side of that lake. Everyone gets left off there, and then you take a gondola or a boat ride over to the entrance to Magic Kingdom. So if you were thinking that a rental car is going to give you lots of freedom and you're not going to have to wait in line for these shuttles, think again. If you stay on property, I really don't think a rental car makes any sense. Even going back and forth to the airport from Disney World, a Lyft is not that expensive. Okay, so we have your own car, we have Lyft and Uber, and now of course we have Disney Public Transit. There are a lot of different moving pieces and aspects to Disney transportation. There are the shuttle buses between each of the hotels and each of the parks, and these are really nicely organized. Like when you leave the park, there will be big bus bays and different lines with the names of the hotels. And there is the gondola, the Skyliner, which is amazing. I loved using it the day we used it, but it is still being built and it doesn't connect to everything yet. And there's also a fair amount of shuttle boats, actually, because there's a lot of lakes and stuff around everything. Every time we used Disney's public transportation, we had a great experience. But we didn't take it at park opening and close. We'd heard horror stories about long lines, and we just decided it wasn't worth all of that time. We would rather sleep in a little bit. And yeah, just spend the $10 for the Lyft ride. And two, definitely the Skyliner, but also the shuttles can get shut down in bad weather. This happened to us twice during our 1-week trip. Both times we had restaurant reservations that we had to get to. The first we walked, which was an experience in pouring rain and hail. Luckily we had good rain gear and it was posted if that was an option. And in the second, we just hopped on a Lyft, which was disappointing because taking the Skyliner was kind of what we were looking forward to doing at dinner. But, you know, you move on. The Disney Experience app that you use for like planning your whole Disney vacation does a really good job at giving you directions for the public transportation. Very Google Maps-like, and it'll tell you which things to do, which routes to take, and also it'll give you time estimates. You can book your sit-down restaurants in advance, even farther in advance if you stay on property, and I recommend looking up those exact times, putting them in your calendar, knowing the restaurants you want to book, and doing that as soon as you can. Restaurants can pretty much be broken down between table service and counter service. I'm pretty much going to just talk about the table service ones. And each of those is either inside one of the parks or inside one of the hotels, or in Disney Springs, I guess. The ones in the park, obviously, you can only eat in those restaurants when you have a ticket into the parks those days. Some sit-down meals are also character meals. These are all fixed menus as far as I know, and they should definitely be booked in advance. We did character meals pretty much every lunch. Was that crazy expensive and way too much food? Yes. Do we have any regrets? No. It was so special for the little ones, and it was also really nice for us to have a break in the middle of the day. The food was all top quality. Our last lunch, we did it in a counter service restaurant, and the food was fine, but it actually felt more overpriced than our fancy expensive character meals. Because we just got a small amount of food and then ice cream later. We actually hadn't been stopping for snacks and ice cream because all of our big sit-down meals left us stuffed and also included dessert. But I digress. The counter service, we had to squeeze into a little table and clean it ourselves and put our stuff on the floor, which was kind of dirty. Just like a normal crowded counter service restaurant experience, but with the $100 price tag. It was a meal that served its purpose compared to the character meals, which each and every one was an experience in itself. But keeping to the video topic of planning your Disney trip, you want to book your sit-down meals ASAP. The character meals and all of the cool restaurant concepts do fill up pretty fast. We had a lot of lunches at 11 a.m. because I did not book as soon as I could. And while I said I'm not really going to talk about the counter service restaurants, it is worth knowing that in that same Disney Experience app, you can do mobile ordering and have your food ready and waiting for you while everyone else is lining up around the block. If your hotel has a counter service restaurant, the same works there, which is really nice. It's, everyone decides what they want and then one person runs and gets it. And speaking of eating in your hotel, you can do Amazon Fresh. We had an order of milk and yogurts and just ended up eating breakfast in our hotel every morning. When the delivery came, we were waiting for it. They asked for a room. We thought they were going to come right to our room. They actually went to the lobby, and the lobby had a refrigerator. They kept the box in until we came and got it. Okay, let's move on to rides, which is, the fun stuff rather than all of the planning stuff. I did a lot of research here, arguably too much. The Disney food blog that I already mentioned has these really nice videos where they go over every single ride in all of the different parks. So I watched and even studied these videos and made my own list of the rides, her estimated wait time, and a little note about like if this ride makes sense for us. Like if you have teenagers, you're probably going to skip The Little Mermaid and Peter Pan, but my kids are 3 and 6, so we didn't even consider going anywhere near Haunted Mansion. Oh, and speaking of, rider swap is a thing. So if someone in your party isn't able to or doesn't want to ride a ride, you tell the cast member at the entrance of the ride that you want to do a rider swap. And then say you are a family of 4. Dad and the older sibling go and do the ride, and mom waits with the little one who doesn't want to go. Then when they're done, they swap. Dad watches the little one, mom gets to go right to the front of the line, and the big kid gets to ride it again with mom this time. This is like, we never actually even used this. I thought my kids would like be napping off schedule and stuff like that, but they actually were up all day, and we didn't use it, but I think it's just such a nice thing so that everyone gets to ride the rides and no one is stuck on stroller duty. Okay, that was actually a little bit of a tangent. So I have my big list of all the rides I want to do, and they're separated by the neighborhoods. For example, in Magic Kingdom, I have my Fantasyland section and my Tomorrowland section. And now I don't want to go into Genie Plus here because again, it is changing, but I have a fantastic Genie Plus video that I will link down below. And so how did I use all this? So the Genie is your fast lane. You can book one fast lane, and then when you show up, you check in, and then you're able to book your next one. So fast lane, you still have to wait in a little line. And while I'm in that little line, I check out my list. And now I know which are the rides that normally have long lines that are in the neighborhood and we haven't done yet. And I can also book a Genie for that's, pretty soon. And, I did that. I kind of worked my way through each ride that I knew had a long line, and then I would normally do one of the rides that normally has a short line kind of in between, because in between each Genie ride. Again, if you have the Disney Experience app on your phone right now, you can actually look to see like what is the wait time for Splash Mountain like right now, assuming you're not watching this while the ride is and the whole park is closed. So again, along those same themes, if this is your first time to Disney World or first time there as an adult, you don't know which rides have long lines and which ones are worth using your fast pass for and which ones you can probably just virtually walk right onto. By having my cheat sheet, I was able to not just pick the right rides to use a fast lane for, but also kind of organize ourselves so we stayed in one part of the park at a time and we weren't running too much back and forth. If you have bigger kids, you might end up having to prioritize the wait lines because the big kid rides get really long lines. Luckily, if you have little kids, which I mean really is lucky, those rides tend to have more reasonable lines, so you really probably can do like one section of the park at a time, exhaust it, and then move on to the next one. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about planning your time. Each day that you enter the parks, you will have an admission to one park. If you want to be free to move between the parks, then you need a park hopper pass, and that's still just in the afternoons, I think, unless some things changed since I'm recording this. We didn't park hop at all. Each park is so big, we never felt any desire to do more than one in a day. Except maybe it would have been nice to go back and have more Epcot time. We didn't know we were gonna like Epcot so much. So that might be one time I think park hopping could be nice, to have it towards the end of your trip, and then you are free to go back and do something that you didn't get a chance to do when you originally hoped to. We did 5 park days with one rest day in the middle. For the rest day, we mostly stayed at the hotel pool. We loved our rest day. For our park days, we did mornings. We got there as early as we possibly could, and we left for dinner and didn't come back. You probably want to get there early or stay late, like I said earlier, or both, but if you're up for that, we were not up for that. The exception was fireworks. 2 nights we stayed late to do the fireworks, once in Epcot, which we timed to be the night before our rest day, and once in Magic Kingdom, which was our very last park day before we came home. The fireworks were amazing. They're not even really fireworks, they're both more like light shows that happen to include fireworks. My one planning mistake, and why I wish we'd had another chance to try Epcot, was, okay, so backing up. Epcot is sort of 2 sections. The top is this futuristic Community of Tomorrow section, and then the bottom is a lake, and around the lake are all the different countries of the world. We spent the morning in the top part and had the character lunch up there. And the plan was to spend the afternoon and the evening snacking and eating dinner our way around the countries of the world, which I thought this was a fantastic plan. But what I didn't know was that the characters that hang out in the different, corresponding countries of the world are only there in the mornings. So we missed our only chance to see all of them, including Aurora, which is my oldest favorite. And by the time we make it there again, I don't know if meeting characters will have the same magic that it does when you're 6 years old. So I don't know if she's ever gonna have a chance to meet the real Aurora. And even though it's just a small mistake, it is kind of heartbreaking. But considering all the moving parts that go into planning a Disney vacation, I feel like we pretty much nailed it and everything went perfectly. And you've probably picked up on the fact that the experience turned me a little Disney crazy. I've got the bug. I'm in love. We were me, my 6 and 3-year-old, and my mom. My mom confessed later that she expected it to be kind of miserable, but worth it to see the magic in the kids' faces. And I expected meltdowns from tired kids. Remember, I am talking a 3 and a 6-year-old. But we actually had 0 meltdowns the entire week. And I also expected some personal disappointment as my plans inevitably fell apart, but that didn't happen either. It helped that all of the staff is really amazing. So when we hit a little hiccup in our plans, they gave us great help and we were right back on track. So yeah, it was all just really lovely and I cannot wait to do it again. And yeah, I hope to pay it forward so that you now know what you don't know and can fill in those gaps, at least the ones you care about, and have your own magical experience. I would actually love to do a part 2 to this video where I go through all the things that ended up in my own research to-do list, in my own big planning doc. All the stuff that I heard some Disney content creator mention real quickly, assuming I knew what they were talking about, and I didn't, and I had to go research it separately. So if you think I should make that, leave me some encouragement, or maybe if you're watching this in the future, I've already made that, in which case I will link it somewhere on one of the things. Or if not, I do have some other travel planning videos that maybe if you like this one, you would like one of those too. Thank you so much for watching and letting me relive some of these memories with you. Ciao!